What's the story, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? Welcome back to Gaelic Games Fan TV. How's the form? I hope everyone is keeping well. Here we go then. The ladies football season comes to a close this coming Sunday, unless there is a replay between Dublin and Kerry, of course. But here we go. This is the preview for Dublin and Kerry in the ladies football final. Kerry bidding to win their first title since 1993. Dublin bidding to win their first title since 2020. And much like the men's final, it is two massive rivals. Two teams that maybe haven't shared the same type of rivalry down the years in ladies football, just because Kerry haven't always been at the top table. It's been a long way for Kerry. It's been a long way for them to get back to the top of the ladies football pyramid. And for Dublin, obviously they had a period of dominance for a long moment in time, a couple of years back under Mick Bohan, who of course is still the Dublin senior football manager. Meath came along and had other ideas, but of course the Meath dominance and the Meath era ended, for this year anyways, with Kerry beating them. So I'm hugely excited for it. Obviously the inter-county season drawn to a close. It's mad to think, here we go, like it's after all the preview and after all the discussing of the games in both ladies football, in men's football, of all codes, it all comes to a close this coming Sunday. Absolutely mad to think that all the senior championships come to a close this weekend. And here we go then. Dublin and Kerry, the ladies football final preview. My prediction, let's get into it. So I think what we'll do first of all is we'll look through both teams' route to the final, and then we'll also look through some of the top scorers and some of the key players that could be on show this coming Sunday. So you'll see an image on screen there. It's from our good friend, the Gaelic Statsman. Make sure to give him a follow on Instagram if you haven't already. But you'll see there Dublin's route to the final. Dublin beating Meath on the opening day in Leinster, won 6 to 7 points. A great win over Laois, and then we win the Leinster final, beating Meath in the process. The All-Ireland series, Dublin losing to Kerry in the group stages, a disappointing defeat from a Dublin perspective, and how much could that defeat play a role in this coming Sunday? We bounced back with a big win over Cavan. We then beat Donegal 3-12 to 6 points, and then we then beat Cork in the semi-finals 2-19 to 13 points. And you'll see our total scored per game, 17 goals and 84 points, with an average of 2 goals and 13 points per game. And we have conceded 3 goals and 54 points, with an average of 9 points per game. And I think the most interesting thing from a Dublin perspective, much like the men's team, is that we have had a lot of inconsistencies at the best of times this year. Throughout the league, we were very inconsistent. And even some of our performances in the Leinster Championship, even though we did win the Leinster title, were far from convincing. Like our win against Meath on the opening day, although we got over the line, I didn't think we were particularly brilliant that day. And then obviously in the group stages, that defeat to Kerry very much set us on the back foot. But after beating Cavan and then going in against Donegal, something completely changed from a Dublin perspective, and we seem to find our mojo, we seem to find our gear right there and then. And I think maybe the fact that we got beaten by Donegal last season in the quarterfinals was enough of a motivation for this Dublin team to kick into gear and really get the result we needed against Donegal. Our performance against Cork was exceptional as well. I mean, albeit the goal, you could say, was somewhat controversial in the first half. But even at that, when you look back at replays, I think it's fair to say that the goal was rightly given. And I think to dispatch Cork in the way that we did, and in the end beat them by 12 points, was nothing short of remarkable, really, because Cork have been very good this year. Like, they beat Kerry earlier in the season in that Munster final, and to beat them in the way that we did has been outstanding. If we look through some of the Dublin scores, you'll see Carla Rowe with 5 goals and 20 points, Hannah Tyrrell with 3-17, Kate Sullivan with 5-5, Jennifer Dunn with 9 points. And if you want to have a look through the rest of the scores there, you can pause the screen to see who has been on the score sheet for Dublin this season. Carla Rowe's been in absolute phenomenal form from a Dublin perspective. She scored 5-12 in total from play, and she's really been the difference in the last couple of games to grabbing Dublin over the line. Hannah Tyrrell's obviously been excellent as well, but Kate Sullivan has definitely provided a bit more emphasis in attack from a Dublin perspective. 5 goals and 5 points for her this season, and she's really been key in leading Dublin back to the final. Looking at Kerry's route to the final then, they beat Waterford on the opening day in the Munster Championship 2-8 to 8 points. They drew at Cork, but they then did come back and beat Tipperary 2-8 to 1-5. But then a very damning defeat in the Munster final to Cork, 2-17 to 5-14. And that's been the interesting thing with both Dublin and Kerry. There has been bumps in the road. It hasn't been smooth sailing, and certainly for Kerry, this was a bit of a setback considering Kerry won the league a couple of weeks previous as well. In the All-Ireland series, they got that much needed win over Dublin, like we were saying. They beat Cavan 221-2-5. They got over the line against Meath in the quarter-finals, of course, knocking out the reigning champions. And then they then beat Mayo 116-111. So you can see there they've scored 15 goals and 100 points, scoring 212 per game, and they've conceded 12 goals and 76 points, conceding 2-8 per game. You would look at some of the statistics here, and if you read between the lines, you would say that Kerry have been conceding more on average per game, conceding 2 goals and 8 points, as opposed to Dublin, who've conceded 9 points per game. Don't get me wrong, I'm not a big statistics buff or anything of that nature. I think sometimes statistics can paint a good narrative, but they can also, be misleading at sometimes as well. But you do look at it in this instance and you think, with how good Dublin's attack have looked in the last 2 games, something's just clicked. Carla Rowe's been phenomenal. Jennifer Dunn's been in extraordinary form. Hannah Tyrrell's been absolutely exceptional as well. Defensively, we've been really, really strong in the last 2 games from a Dublin perspective as well, when you actually look at it. Something did click going into that Donegal game, I've absolutely no doubt about it. We conceded 13 points against Cork and 6 points against Donegal. Defensively, we've really massively improved, in my opinion. I think Leah Caffrey's been phenomenal at fullback. Lauren McGee's been very good in at wingback. And Martha Byrne has done an extraordinary job for Dublin in at centre-back in there as well. And Abby Shields has been fantastic with her kick-outs on more than one occasion, especially against Cork. That was very evident to see. So when you look at it, Dublin are looking very good. We are looking very good. We are looking very strong. I do think Kerry, though, they have that will and they have that hurt from obviously losing the final last year. Louise Namerta in extraordinary form, and actually Louise Namerta with 4 goals and 44 points. Danielle O'Leary with 2 goals and 10 points. Sheafra O'Shea with 3 goals and 3 points. Hannah O'Donoghue with a goal and 8 points. Niamh Carmody with 2-3. And you can see the rest on the screen there as well. Kerry do have definitely a bit more spread of scores as opposed to Dublin. But at the same time, Louise Namerta is in extraordinary form. She's definitely in Footballer of the Year talk for me in terms for Kerry. Sheafra O'Shea's injury is huge, don't get me wrong, and that will be a massive blow from a Kerry perspective. But you do look at someone like Louise Namerta, the form that she's in, it's going to be a massive test to see that Dublin defence and see how they deal with her, in fairness. Will Leah Caffrey be the one to pick up Louise Namerta, or could it even be Aoife Kane? It's hard to know. But Dublin are going to have their hands full with Louise Namerta. Absolutely no shadow of doubt about it. The form that she's in and some of the performances she's put in Croke Park as well. You think back to that league final. So that's going to be the big sort of ace in the pack for Kerry. And if they are going to get over the line, she's going to need to be in her best form. And to be fair, she has been on her best form on more than one occasion this year. So ultimately, in terms of a prediction then, if you go back and watch some of my earlier videos, and I even did a ladies football prediction earlier in the season, I have predicted Dublin to win the All-Ireland. Unlike my men's football prediction, where I very much was against Dublin all year, I had this sense that Dublin were going to come back stronger this season. I think possibly the last year for Mick Bohan as manager of the Dublin ladies. I think there is younger players who've come in, but there is, in a similar fashion to the men's team, there is a couple of players who are getting on a bit. And I've got this last dance feeling about this Dublin side in a similar fashion to the men's team. So I think we're going to do it. I think we're going to edge it ever so slightly. I think Kerry's attack is going to be very dangerous, and how we stop a player of the influence of Louise Namerta is going to be huge. But I just fancy us to come through it. I think we've, as I said, in the last 2 games, defensively, we've been fantastic. To concede just 13 points against Cork, a team that had been free-flowing all season long, and then even only conceding 6 points against Donegal was very impressive as well. And I think there is vulnerabilities about Kerry's defence. We've seen Mayo exploit it, and even in previous games this season, Cork putting 5 goals past them in the Munster Championship. So I think there is vulnerabilities about Kerry's defence. So ultimately, I'm going to go for Dublin to edge it by 2 points. And look, double delight for the Dubs. I think it's going to happen. And unfortunately for Kerry fans, there'll be more tears this Sunday. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up here. Leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you enjoy this content, let me know in the comments down below. Plenty more videos coming out in the next couple of days and whatnot. And all the content will remain free. So there you go. So anyway, leave a like, subscribe. We'll chat to you all soon.